Welcome to episode 23 of Pinnacle FC. Gareth Wheeler, Jake Osgathorpe with you as we're out to navigate, provide you free bets, our picks and plays across European football this weekend. We're coming to you after taking a week off. We did do the podcast on Monday. I hope that you enjoyed our Champions League picks and plays because so far so good. We're recording this podcast on Wednesday before the second day of Champions League fixture. But sides like Atalanta keep on coming through for us. It was a profitable Tuesday, wasn't it, Jake?
It was, yeah. Atalanta, I think the handicap was at -2. They ended up winning 5-0, which was nice. And I know you tipped the goals in Barcelona, Benfica, but I think you got that one wrong, really. You went for the over 3.25. You should have gone over 7.5. Yeah, it's a bit chicken of you, to be fair. You left a lot on the board there.
The best is that they're two brilliant teams to watch, two teams that we like to bet on and play here on this podcast. They play one another in the Champions League, the final match day of the league phase next week. So we're looking forward to that already. We did take a week off. I'm on vacation in Mexico. I've already documented this, not to rub it in anyone watching or listening in a cold climate right now because it is frigid. It's snowing on the beach in Florida at present time. There's ice and snow in New Orleans. It's absolutely bonkers what's going on over here right now. But I'm on vacation, and 3 weeks ago, I tried to log off a little bit, and I get a note in our WhatsApp group asking our fine producer, Ben, to correct something. It looked as though I'd come away with a perfect 3-for-3 week in our last podcast. It was FA Cup weekend, and then Jake just has to go in and make a correction that, in fact, Spurs didn't beat Tamworth by 2 goals because it came in extra time. You're absolutely spot on and correct, but for a moment there, I'm thinking 3-0, just based upon the scores that I see while I'm on vacation, and you just had to put a little bit of a damper on that, didn't you?
Yeah, I just love busting your balls. That, even more so because we had a good long debate about that game, and I was fairly adamant that Tamworth could keep it quite close. So, yeah, I wasn't letting you have that one.
That's okay. I did win.
You did.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
A rare win for Wolves over Bristol City. So yeah. I'll put that on the mantle for now. You're still leading in the head-to-head. But let's get straight to it. I don't know about you, but I really like the board this weekend across the board. I have a lot of picks and plays, or at least strong leans in the games in the Premier League, in La Liga, and Serie A, and the Bundesliga this weekend. Nothing from France for me. And that is keeping in mind that the final match day of the Champions League group phase goes next week as well. So keep that in mind when you're making your picks and plays ahead of this weekend. Remember to like this podcast. Please subscribe. And remember to bet smart, bet Pinnacle. Your best lines on your best markets really that are available out there are available on Pinnacle. So let's get straight to it. In the Premier League on Saturday, there's 3 games that I'm looking at on Saturday, but the marquee fixtures, Manchester City and Chelsea. City are a favorite, and you can actually get Chelsea on the handicap, giving up half a goal. So a draw would come away as a win for Chelsea in this one. The line is set at 3.25. How are you feeling about this one? Of course, City play PSG in the Champions League on Wednesday. We're recording this podcast before that. What do you make of this fixture? Because there are 2 sides that haven't exactly been lighting the world on fire in the Premier League, and even some questions have started to be asked about Chelsea and where they're at right now.
Yeah, I think, like you said, there's question marks about both, but I wouldn't have Manchester City this short to win this game. I know that they're on a decent run of form on the face of it. They've won 4 of an unbeaten 5 in the league. But if you look at who they played against, Leicester, awful team. West Ham before this at Lopetegui. League 2 Salford. Brentford, they were 2-0 up and absolutely folded. And then Ipswich, another really, really poor team. So I think it's been a really kind schedule for City that's kind of helped them get back on track after an awful run. But it is also just worth mentioning that after this, this is the start of an absolute horrific run of fixtures for City as well. Chelsea, at Arsenal, at home to Newcastle, at home to Liverpool, at Spurs, at Forest, at home to Brighton. So they basically got a run of 8 top half teams after this match. So, yeah, I'm quite happy to jump back aboard the train that we disembarked from a couple of weeks ago and back Chelsea on the team total, plus 123 to score 2 or more goals at the Etihad. I think that Chelsea are a much better team than anything City have faced recently. I do think there's been a bit of a false dawn with their recent results and recent clean sheets. I think there's still vulnerabilities there. And Chelsea have all the capabilities to cause serious problems going forward. And as I mentioned, in 12 games before this little mini uptick for City, they conceded 2 or more goals in 11 of those. And I was very tempted to make a pro-Chelsea play. But I think their defensive injuries, Colwell's a doubt. Obviously, Fofana's out for a while. They started on Monday night with Chalobah and Tosin Adebayo, and I'm not too sure if that fills with confidence to make a Chelsea bet. So I'm just going to stick to goals because I think that this could be quite a high-scoring contest. So Chelsea on team total for me at plus 123. Alternatively, take the goal line as well. 3.25, I think it's a little bit too low, minus 117.
It's pretty crazy to read that City haven't lost to Chelsea in 11 and no clean sheet for Chelsea over that span as well. And certainly Chelsea bring the goals with them away from home. So back in the team total, they have 24 and 11 away fixtures in the Premier League on the season. I just can't get behind City based upon what you've kind of documented in their soft schedule. Even at home, like 4-1 over West Ham, okay, 1-1 against Everton. These aren't accomplished. These aren't very good sides. They're 8th in home expected points, according to Understat in the Premier League. So I can't back City. No bet for me, but I might end up making a small play on Chelsea on the handicap. I want to see what happens. If City go out and beat PSG, I'm expecting this number to move. It could happen. I'm not sure if it will, but I'll wait and see what happens coming out of the Champions League on Wednesday before I make a firm play. But I lean a Chelsea bet on the handicap here. I can't back City right now, even with new signings coming into the side as well. Anything else catch your eye in the Premier League on Saturday, Jake?
Yeah, I think it could be a good day for the away teams. I think last week was a really good day week for away teams as well. I'm looking at Wolves versus Arsenal, and I'm happy to back Arsenal on the handicap. The line is at 1.25 at plus money, but if you drop that to -1, you get minus 126, and I still think that's a very palatable price, and it means that we only need Arsenal to win by 1 goal. We get our full money back. They've had a very tough away schedule, have Arsenal. I think that's something that we have to factor in here. They've played only played 4 teams away from home that currently reside in the bottom half, and they've won all 4 of those. They covered the handicap in 3 of those, and only against Spurs did that fail. And obviously Spurs are a bottom half team by results, and I guess not by stature. And obviously it's a big derby, but they've also been to West Ham, thrashed them 5-2, been to Palace 5-1, been to Brentford 3-1. Could really dominate Wolves. Wolves are really poor just in general at home as well, allowing just 1.8 expected goals against per game, which is the 4th most in the league. And I think the big factor here is, I mean, we bang on about it all the time, but set pieces. Arsenal are the best team in the league from set pieces. Wolves by far the worst. They've conceded 19 goals from set pieces this season, Wolves. Arsenal have scored the most in the league, created the most XG from set pieces. So there's every chance that Arsenal score 2 set-piece goals and cover this handicap with set pieces alone. Would not surprise me one bit. And if you can get close to kick-off player props, back Gabriel to score anytime. I backed him a couple of weeks ago against Spurs in the North London derby. Obviously, he had the header that went in off, I can't remember who with the own goal, but for a brief moment, it was given as a Gabriel goal, and I was up celebrating. But that soon got given. It's Solanke own goal. He's just an unbelievable attacking threat. He's with no Saka in the team. You look at Havertz, Martinelli, Odegaard. Gabriel's up there with the biggest attacking threats for Arsenal. So if you can get anywhere around plus 500 for a Gabriel goal, I think that's the way to go. But I'll be taking Arsenal on the handicap at minus 126.
The Solanke own goal, by the way, wasn't great for my fantasy team either. Also, just when it comes to Wolves, the new manager, Cunha's stalling on a new contract. What's going on with Lamina? It just doesn't seem right at present time, even though I think they still have some talent in that squad, but just some issues that kind of raise a few red flags. Anything else for you on Saturday? I have a couple other games I'm looking at. I guess the big one, I'm going to throw this to you. I'm not sure if you have a play here or not, but Bournemouth Nottingham Forest has the makings of just an excellent watch on Saturday. I'm not sure if you want to get involved with it or not, but Bournemouth haven't lost a game in 11, and Nottingham Forest haven't lost a game in 9th. and are still kind of pushing Liverpool and Arsenal every step of the way. What's a little bit surprising to me here is that Bournemouth are the favorites on market on Pinnacle in this one. Is the market right in your eyes? Should Bournemouth be considered favorites here?
Yeah, definitely. Based on the underlying data, they should definitely be favourites. I think Bournemouth, they are fifth in terms of expected goal difference per home game, which is very, very good, ahead of the likes of Man City, Newcastle, even Forest themselves. And Forest away from home, or just in general, they're only a mid-table team according to underlying data. They're doing a lot of overperforming in terms of picking up more points than you would expect. And that's just down to their style of play. They go 1-up or, 2-1 up and almost retreat and concede shots, which means that the XG totals do get skewed a little bit against them. But I do think Bournemouth are the better of the two teams, for sure. It's just a case of if they can be patient enough to break down this Nottingham Forest backline. Forest's obviously going to spring on the counter-attack, but I wouldn't put anybody off backing Bournemouth to win at plus 111, because I do think that the Forest's form and kind of winning streak it's inevitably going to end, and ultimately that'll just be a bit of regression, that you can't always keep eking out these games 1-0. Last week hanging on 3-2 against Southampton right at the very death. He's eventually going to get caught up, and I think this is a very awkward game for them.
Yeah, but no official. That happened. That happened because Nottingham Forest completely switched off after they went up 3-0 in the game.
Still, you can't be letting the worst team in the league come back in and make it interesting.
I understand that, but
your goal difference is rubbish compared to everyone else. Get a few more on the go.
There's been some Forest money that's come in. The handicap's at a quarter of a goal. Forest on the plus side, shifted from plus 113 to plus 107. I'm more looking to the unders, Jake. Under 2.5 at plus 104. Like, Bournemouth play low-scoring home games. They've only scored 12 home goals. Recent games, 1-1, 1-0, 0-0, 1-0 against Forest, who are one of, if not the best defensive side in the Premier League. 3 straight clean sheets away from home. I look at the under. I know it's at 2.5, but at plus 104, I'm willing to make that a play. I think it's going to be a competitive game, a watchable game, but low-scoring game. So I could see it being a 1-1, something like that. So I'm happy to play the under 2.5 at plus 104. One of my favorite plays of the weekend, and it will be until I see anything otherwise, betting against Southampton. Like, they're not a Premier League side. I'm not sure if they
are they a championship
they get rid
team?
of I don't know.
Maybe League One.
You get rid of your manager, Russell Martin. Why?
I know, yeah.
The managerial change doesn't make sense. The numbers just jump off the page. This is it's a dream bounce back spot for Newcastle. Week off after getting smashed 4-1 to Bournemouth. Give me Newcastle on the handicap minus 1.5 at plus 109. I was even thinking Newcastle, the team total over 2.5 at plus 120. Newcastle have scored 3 or more goals in 6 of their 9 games before. By the way, it was 9 wins in a row before that Bournemouth loss. So that's not going to take me off of my Newcastle hype. Southampton at home, 1-1-8, a 32.53 expected goals against, 7 goals scored, 27 conceded. Like, 59.75 expected goals against is by far, it's the worst expected goals against by over 8 expected goals overall in the Premier League. 1 win in their last 10, it came against Swansea. Newcastle won the opening fixture of the season against Southampton, but they went down to 10 men in the first half, and they still held on for a 1-0 win. I think that Newcastle can run away with this. Looks a good spot to bet Newcastle on the handicap here.
Yeah, I've got exactly the same bet down. Third best travelling team in the league on the data as well, Newcastle, which is pleasantly surprising. Southampton, worst home team, as you said, they're conceding nearly 3 expected goals against per game, which is absolutely remarkable. Newcastle could really have a field day, and I am going to put a bit of an asterisk next to that defeat with Bournemouth against Bournemouth, because I do think the schedule had a lot to do with it. They've had a nice week off now, and before the Bournemouth game, or the Bournemouth game was their 10th game in 36 days, so basically a game every 3.5 days. Playing in Carabao Cup, playing in the FA Cup, playing over the festive period as well. So I think that's probably took its toll on them. I think they needed just a week off just to freshen up a little bit. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was the record against newly promoted teams across the last 3 seasons. away from home. They've won 5, drawn 1, lost 1, but the aggregate score is 23-4. So when they beat these teams that have just been promoted, they generally blow the doors off them. I think obviously they beat Ipswich 4-0 a couple of weeks back. Last season they beat Burnley 4-1 at Turf Moor. They beat Sheffield United 8-0. I wouldn't be surprised if this was an 8-0 kind of game. The season before they went to Fulham and beat them 4-1. And I just a final note on this. We thought last season's promoted teams were bad. This season's promoted teams could be worse. I mean, at this stage last season, the promoted teams had more points than the current crop of promoted teams do.
Oh, yeah.
Which shows how bad they really are. So, yeah, I'm all over Newcastle on the handicap as well.
Perfect transition, professional segue, Jake, because I'll bet against Leicester City again. I'm actually betting with Spurs this weekend. It's a Sunday fixture. Man. Tottenham Hotspur against Leicester City. On the handicap, a goal and a quarter at -101. I'm also fine betting the over 3.5 at -109. Just get a little bit extra juice. Look, Tottenham's 14th in home points, but this is Leicester City that we're talking about. Leicester City, no clean sheet in 17. Away from home, 27 goals conceded in 10 games. Only Southampton has a worst expected goals against away from home. They've only won 1. They've lost 7 Premier League away games in a row and conceded 2 or more in each and every one of them. If you like the goals, that's fine as well. Both teams' scores played in 6 of 6, over 2.5 in 5 of 6. 3.5 doesn't scare me off here as well, but I'll just back Spurs on the handicap here. It's a get things right game. Big Ange needs this one.
I was close to doing similar, but it's just I just got a feeling of this being a real banana skin for Spurs coming off the back of a midweek game in Germany. And I think it's probably similar to Man United. I think we'll touch on the United game shortly, but like the way the league season's gone, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Ange just drop the league altogether and just focus on getting players fit for Europa League, for the Carabao Cup semi-final, and for obviously an FA Cup run. I would not be at all surprised if we see them drop silly points in the league in these kind of weeks.
I would have said that, but the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup game's a couple weeks out. This seems like a spot at home against Leicester City. If they're away from home, I hear you, but they need some good vibes in their own stadium right now. And this is, other than Southampton, there's no other opponent that you want to play this weekend if you're Spurs.
Yeah, no, I get that. But as we currently stand, they are 9th in the Europa League table. They're going to miss out on that top 8, which means that they have 2 extra fixtures on the schedule. So if I'm Ange, I'm looking at this Leicester game and thinking, right, I'll play the reserves. I'll save the lads for the final Europa League game next week, and make sure we finish in that top 8, because that's going to give us an extra 2 midweeks rest compared to if we prioritise the game against Leicester to jump from 14th to 13th with a win. And then, all of a sudden we've got 2 extra games and we've got players coming back fit. They might get more injured. So that was my thinking as to why I was looking to swerve them. Obviously, I wouldn't be at all surprised, even if Spurs put the backups out, if they won this 2 or 3-0, because I think Leicester are that bad. But there was just a nagging doubt that Leicester are one of those teams that in transition could really hurt the Spurs, especially defence, because they're absolutely out on their arse. All those defenders have played every single game across the last 2 months. And yeah, the last thing you want is Jamie Vardy running off your shoulder.
Yeah. Let's get into Fulham, Manchester United. You teed it up. Craven Cottage on Sunday. United won the opening match of the season, 1-0 against Fulham. I'm looking at Fulham at a quarter of a goal at +101. Ruben Amorim, your own manager, United's own manager came out and said they're the worst side in Manchester United history. They have a big game against Rangers on Thursday in the Europa League and a quick turnaround. Just watching this team, it's hard to see where they'll improve. Fulham have only lost 1 in their last 11 in all competitions. They're 7 points better than United in the table, 9 goals better in terms of goal differential. They haven't lost in their last 6 at home. It's been a little bit of a mixed bag of results, but we know what we're getting out of Manchester United at this point. They're only wins in the Premier League in the last 7 or 8 games came against Southampton, and City. That's it. Other than that, they get smashed every week. I think this is going to be a tough trip for them to Craven Cottage.
Yeah, not off. Those 2 games are the only 2 away wins all season as well. They've really struggled on the road. Drawn 4, lost the other 4. Worst team in the league, Southampton, and a smash and grab where City capitulated. So, Yeah, the data paints a similar picture. They've got a negative expected goal difference when travelling, which means that on average they get out created by their opponent. And Fulham are just generally a strong team, consistent team, eighth based on expected goal difference per game. And yeah, United had a couple of good performances, didn't they, against Liverpool, against Arsenal, and then it's all gone to shit again. Like Southampton and Brighton displays were just embarrassing. They were really, really bad. As you said, they play on Thursday, and again, like I said with Spurs, I think United have to prioritise the Europa League because it's an avenue into the Champions League. If you win the Europa League, you're in the Champions League. It doesn't matter if you finish 17th
Yep.
or fourth. So I definitely think that there's going to be serious thought between United and Spurs coaches as to what they're going to do in terms of team selection, just to keep everybody fresh. Because I do think there is priority in the European competition. I think the important thing about taking the handicap, like you said there, is that Fulham have had 4 straight home draws. So if we take the handicap, if there is a draw, we get half our money back. But yeah, as you said, I think Fulham are just a better team, to be honest. And I wouldn't put anybody off backing Fulham to win and both teams to score at a big plus 352 because both teams to score has landed in 10 of 11 Fulham home games. So, they offer a lot going forward, but they are still quite leaky at the back. So a couple of options there.
And just if you like the historical context, Fulham haven't had a clean sheet against United in their last 20 meetings. Ridiculous. Is that it from the Premier League for you?
Yep,
I guess we
all
dealt
for
with
me.
half the games. Let's move to La Liga. Anything catching your eye in Spain this weekend?
No, nothing this weekend for me in Spain. I've got a couple of picks in Italy and one in Germany, but nothing in Spain. Have you got anything?
Well, I like Real Madrid to win to nil at plus 133 at Real Valladolid. I love to bet them not to score. Then they've scored goals in their last few games, but when they play better sides, like Real Madrid earlier this year, Girona, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, they've been outscored by 18. And haven't scored against any one of those sides this season. So when they step up in competition, they struggle, and they've only scored 7 home goals all season. So that's more of a bet against or trying to fade Real Valladolid at home against Real Madrid more so than anything else. I love Real Sociedad this week against Getafe. Sociedad to win and under 2.5 at plus 197. The win plays on Pinnacle at minus 122. The total is set at just 1.75 and win to nil at plus 140. So if you're looking to mine to try to find the best value, it's Sociedad to win and the under. Getafe just doesn't attack. Like away from home, they have 5 goals all season and a 7.74 expected goals. Like they just don't do anything from an attacking perspective. And Sociedad, their last 7 at home, 6-1-0, and they've conceded just 1 goal over the course of that span. So I think you're getting some real good value. Sociedad to win plus under 2.5 at plus 197. Serie A this weekend, it's got a bunch of plum plays for me. A bunch of markets that I have my eye on. What about you, Jake?
Yeah, same. I've got 3. I think we should start with Napoli Juve because that is the highlight game, really. I think this is going to be not one for the purists, shall we say. First, I'll preface by saying it's absolutely bonkers that Juve and Napoli, they've got near identical underlying processes according to XG, and Juve's is actually marginally better, but it's Conte's team that are 13 points above Juve. We have got the 2 best defences on show, both allowing less than 0.8 expected goals against per game. So I think the correct score 0-0 is a real runner at plus 636. It landed in the reverse fixture. And Juventus have been involved in 4 0-0s this season already in the league and 2 in 7 Champions League games. So they are very, very used to drawing. And I think that Juve are going to want to protect this proud record of not losing because they are currently unbeaten in Serie A despite being 5th in the table. A lot of draws. If you don't want to go full on with a 0-0 correct score, you can back under 1 goal at plus 473. So if it's 1-0 either way, you get your money back. And I think that could be something interesting to cheer on with 7 of Napoli's 21 league games seeing that bet land or return money at least.
even if you want to sprinkle in those long shot plays, like, yeah, my play is under 2 at even money. And then you can kind of sprinkle in some of those other score lines. You mentioned in the 0-0 fixture and the reverse fixture between these two sides, XG was identical, 0.31 each way. And they played
they
the under.
Just shook hands, didn't they, at
Yeah.
kickoff and said, let's not do anything.
It could play out this. It's not a bad result for either side, in fairness. No. So, and if you watch Juventus in the Champions League on Tuesday against Club Brugge, like they're away from home again here. Yeah, this is underwritten all over it. Anything else? What are your other plays from Serie A?
Yeah, so the first one is Atalanta to beat Como. I can't quite get my head around this price. -112 for Atalanta to win away from home. Atalanta are comfortably one of the 3 best teams in Italy. The data suggests so. And, I think they're probably getting a bit of recency bias in this price because they are winless in the last 4, but they have played top half teams, Lazio, Juventus, Napoli, 3 of those obviously currently in the top 6. Bounced back in midweek against Sturm Graz. They rested and rotated as well in that game, which was quite important. So Retegui got pulled after at half-time. Luckman came on at half-time, so they've only got 45 minutes in the legs. And yeah, like I said, Retegui's back fit, and I think that's huge because we saw that little blip that they had. That was when he was absent with injury. He's a massively important piece to their puzzle. And then the final thing for me is that a few weeks ago, Milan were -125 to win at Como. Yet a better team in Atalanta are a bigger price.
Interesting. I was thinking about the over. The reason why I'm kind of staying away from this game is because Atalanta at Barcelona midweek, it might mean something for. I need to see how the Champions League games shake down on Wednesday because it could put significant priority on where they finish. And finishing in the top 8 should be paramount for a side like Atalanta at this point. Very similar to you, I can't understand why you can get Bologna +112 at Empoli on Saturday. Bologna is coming off a win against Dortmund midweek. They've only lost 1 of their last 11 games, and they're the 6th best side away from home according to the data. And the Champions League it looks like it's not going to mean anything for them. So a side on great form. Empoli 0-1-5 in their last 6 and no wins in their last 4 at home. They have the 2nd worst expected point total at home as well. So Bologna at +112 looks to be really good value for me. In terms of the Sunday fixtures, I'm locking it in. Inter playing a bad team away. Inter to nil at +122. I do this every week on the podcast. Go back and listen to it. They're just on this run of clean sheets away from home because they simply are much better than the weaker sides that they've been playing. And Lecce, 9 goals and 10 at home. Their last home game, goalless draw against Genoa. Last meeting in August, 2-0. Inter beat Lecce. To me, that's locked and loaded each and every week. And I also like AC Milan to win 2-0 against Parma at +144. They're the best home team, AC Milan, expected goals against in Serie A, just 6.42 and 10, and have only conceded 6 at home. Overall, they do have some fixtures in the Champions League to deal with, but I think they'll be okay. And Parma have lost 3 in a row and only scored 9 away from home. They've been shut out 3 times in their last 5 away. Not great teams. Genoa, Torino, Roma, I guess the best of the bunch. So, yeah, I know that they have a history in this fixture of lots of goals, but I'll just play the reverse here just based upon the recent trend and where both teams stand. That's all for me in Serie A. Anything else for you?
No, I was on board with the Inter to win 0, and then I've just looked, and I guess it's kind of different. There's caveats, isn't there? But their results on the back of Champions League games have not been very good this season. And they've played a lot better teams than what Lecce are. Like Milan, lost to Milan, 3-2 win over Torino, 4-4 draw with Juve, 1-1 draw with Napoli, abandoned game against Fiorentina. They did win 6-0 against Lazio, so mixed bag. But I think that Lecce are decisively worse than all of those teams I've just mentioned. And I think the way in which the league's going, if what I think is going to happen in the Napoli-Juve game actually happens and it ends in a draw, Inter will see this as a very, very big opportunity to get the upper hand in the league.
Let's discuss the Bundesliga and see if the away side, at least in this case, is a play that you'll be making. RB Leipzig and Bayer Leverkusen. Get Leverkusen at -108, which seems to be a good... that loss to Atletico Madrid, a little bit fluky. The referee just didn't have control of the game. They're up 1-0. They're up a man as well and just give it all away. Such a disappointment for Xabi Alonso's side. But Leipzig, I mean, they've won a couple games in a row, but then they draw 3-3 with bottom feeders Bochum last time, and they play Wednesday against Sporting as well. It's a dead rubber for them. It doesn't mean anything in the Champions League. If you give me Leverkusen at -108 against an inferior side. Also, just to note, the last three meetings between these sides all ended 3-2, if you're looking at the total as well. Leverkusen -108, does it tempt you, Jake?
Yeah, same bet. Got the same bet down. Leipzig are in a bit of a false position at the moment. They sit fifth in the table, but they're actually just ninth in terms of expected goals. So they are fortunate to be in those European places, and Leverkusen are comfortably the second best team in the league. So -108 looks large. I'm also going to back Borussia Monchengladbach to win against those bottom feeders that you just mentioned there. Bochum, -133 to win. Just outright is fine with me. Anybody who wants a little bit extra juice or a bigger price, take the handicap at it's 0.75. But yeah, Gladbach are a very, very strong home team. They've won 5 of 9. The recent results at home, or the recent defeat, came against Bayern Munich. Before that, it was a 1-1 draw with Dortmund. So they should have no problem really with the Bochum team, who are winless away from home, have lost 8 of 9 and have conceded 23 goals in the process.
I have that one as well. I'll play them on the handicap. I think that this line doesn't really make any sense at all. And finally, one of my favorite teams to bet and back on, to back and bet on is Mainz, and they take on Stuttgart. I think this is a game based on context that you're going to get some value betting Mainz on the handicap. It's set at 0 at +133. When you think of these teams too, you think about the total. I'll just bet Mainz on the handicap here. They lost back-to-back games, but both of those games were away from home against Union Berlin and Bayer Leverkusen. Before that, 6 wins out of 7. They're 5th best in expected points at home, and they won their last 4 at home, including games against Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. Stuttgart, 4 straight wins, but they play a big Champions League game that's going to matter next week against PSG. And they've won their last 4 away fixtures in all competitions, but they haven't played anyone decent over that time. So the two sides played to a 3-3 earlier this year in the same fixture. I just think that it's a good spot for Mainz, not a great spot for Stuttgart. So playing them on the home side of the handicap makes a lot of sense for me. So that's all I got for this week. That's all, I should say. I think we threw it about over a dozen plays, picks and plays here over the course of the last half hour.
We need to find a top 3.
Yes. Here we go. What's your podium, Jake? What does it look like this week?
I'm going to take Newcastle on the handicap, number 1.
Yeah.
-1.25 at -114. Number 2, I'm going to take Atalanta to beat Como at -112. And I'm also going to take Gladbach, number 3, at -133 to beat Bochum.
Okay. At number 1, let's go Napoli Juventus under. Let's go under 2 at even odds. I also like Newcastle, but it's going to be on the Asian handicap at -1.5 goals, and it's going to bring it up to +109. And my third play, I like to try to find that value, a little bit more of a plus number here. Real Sociedad to beat Getafe, but the total to stay under 2.5 at a whopping +197. That's it for us this week. We'll be back on Monday with your Champions League look ahead. The final match day should be a whole lot of fun, and we'll look ahead to all of it next week. Good stuff, Jake. Remember to bet smart, bet Pinnacle. On behalf of Jake, I'm Wheels, and this has been episode 23 of Pinnacle FC.